Hope for unbanked Nigerian population as federal government unveils a roadmap for inclusion.
A significant segment of our populace lacks access to a diverse array of affordable financial services.
Nigeria makes move to create 2.5 million decent jobs annually.
Minister of Interior visits Suleja Custodial Center, vows authorities will recapture escapees.
Presently ongoing. We will do everything humanly possible to make sure that everyone is brought back.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss reducing malaria burden.
And the conversation continues. Guess what? On what? Malaria. And it seems that the hope of the global community is that it ends. But because it is a major public health problem in Nigeria, conversation on malaria will continue. It is the highest burden, not just across the world, with nearly 27% of global burden, but of course here in Nigeria. Absolutely. It is a major health concern, absolutely, public health concern.
And one would assume that the fear of malaria will be the beginning of wisdom. But it seems that it is not the case. Now, fear of malaria in parts of the country, because when malaria control is concerned, records show that nearly half of the world's population is at risk of the disease, with about 200 million cases reported in 2021. And
it gets worse, even with, 4 countries, Nigeria inclusive, just to mention others, Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, and Niger. These countries account for over half of all malaria deaths across the world.
Well, the reasons are not far-fetched. Experts say certain conditions allow mosquitoes to thrive, and unfortunately, Nigeria is an enabler due to environmental inhibitions. But apart from the disease mostly found in tropical countries like ours and transmitted to humans by the female Anopheles mosquito, the lack of environmental management leaves little to be desired, resulting in the high incidence rate of malaria in the country.
Okay, Victor, I'm just amused why it's the female, Anopheles mosquito that is associated with the deadly.
Because the males don't look for trouble.
The males don't look for trouble.
We're gentle. Even in mosquitoes, we're gentle.
Anyway, so you now know that it's the female Anopheles mosquito that's the carrier. But of course, apart from the factors that Victor raised, we know of refuse dumps here and there, blocked, drainages, lack of access to protective measures, and of course weak health systems across the country. Now, the breeding sites for malaria, of course, we know are blocked drainages. This is where they breed, and across the country, especially in the slums, they are never in lack. And opinion is that such factors again as poverty, make malaria what they say poverty, the disease of the poor. But of course, that opinion is subjective. And also subjective is the attitude, of community towards prevention and, streamlining transmission and making preventive measures, accessible and all that. But of course, the Nigerian government in recent times have been in the business of intervention, most targeted at the children.
Yeah, and then the bed nets campaign and the approval of the R21 vaccine by World Health Organization and the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control is one step in this direction. Now, study shows the R21 is 77% effective when administered to children from 5 months to 36 months, reducing the burden of malaria mortality.
Victor, remember, I don't know if you recall, in those days we used to have the Sunday malaria, preventive tablets, and our parents used to give this, to us for preventive, purposes, and that very bitter taste, liquid. I don't want it. That's dreaded, quinine.
I think it's adjusted a bit.
Quinine.
No,
So
you have them tasteless, perhaps.
Yeah, and in the past, you also see, health workers going about in the rural communities distributing insecticide-treated bed nets. But there were issues with those, bed nets coming from those who use them, complaints from those who use them. So I don't know what happened, but malaria has continued to endanger lives, not just adults, but also children, and children are the worst hit. And even in countries, the malaria strategic plan. Okay, let's talk about Nigeria's strategic plan now. That's the plan between 2021 and 2025. It's based on a researched model which Nigeria needs to implement more effectively. And this year being the World Malaria Day, which of course we are celebrating, the theme is accelerating the fight against malaria for a more equitable world. And the theme today, we will be looking at reducing the burden of malaria. And well, not just reducing the burden of malaria, we have been reducing the burden of malaria, but of course ending malaria for good without excuses. That's what we want to do. That's why we're bringing it to you on Good Morning Nigeria. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. No woman is, I am harmless, and Victor knows that. So don't worry that the Anopheles mosquito is harmful. Women are gentle and they make your day. So good morning and thank you for joining us on the program. Victor, I know you will agree with me. I know you will. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble when you get home.
The facts speak for themselves.
Well,
I'm Victor as well.
I hope Musa will agree with me.
Good Morning Nigeria is broadcast live on the network service of the NTA. In a moment, we will begin with highlights of the morning news. A much later newspaper review. Let's now join Musa Abubakar for highlights of the morning news.
Hello, Musa. I agree with me.
Maybe I'll go with Claire for now. Well, hello, Claire and Victor. Good morning and welcome to the news. President Bola Tinubu is once more assuring the international community that Nigeria is well positioned to power the clean energy future of Europe and the world with the high-grade lithium deposits in Nigeria. The president made the commitment in his bilateral conversation with Prime Minister Mark Rutte on his state visit to the Netherlands.
So what we need is increasing yield per space. So increasing yield, and that's technology. Good seeds, good fertilization, good cultivation, and good harvest.
The Netherlands has a program that is focused on providing scholarship opportunities for young people in specific sectors, especially in the technological space. So we're looking to work together.
Now, as part of measures to tackle poverty and insecurity, the federal government is engaging stakeholders to unveil a roadmap for integrating unbanked Nigerian population into the formal financial system. The two-day workshop, declared open by Vice President Kashim Shettima, aims at sensitizing stakeholders and chart a course for accelerating financial inclusion.
A significant segment of our populace lacks access to a diverse array of affordable financial services. We are also aware that a fundamental driver of this disparity is the pervasive issue of low income. This poses a threat to the security and stability of the nation.
Security agencies have intensified manhunt for 109 inmates of the Suleja Custodial Center who escaped on Wednesday night following heavy rains that brought down its perimeter fence. Minister of Interior Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, who gave the directive on a visit to the facility, also vowed to ensure there is no recurrence.
The manhunt is presently ongoing. We will do everything humanly possible to make sure that everyone is brought back.
Now, the organized labor is gunning for a 615,000 national minimum wage as it pushes the National Minimum Wage Committee to fast-track conclusion of the process. President Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, Festus Osifo, revealed this to newsmen after the union's National Executive Council meeting in Abuja.
If the purchasing power parity is relatively low, what is going to happen is that the manufacturers will produce their goods and they will keep it in the shelf because there wouldn't be patronage from the people. So we demand that the Committee on Minimum Wage should hasten their activities, release the payment of wage award for March 2024 and April 2024.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Labour and Employment has commenced engagement with development finance institutions to create 2.5 million decent jobs for Nigerians annually. It was at the unveiling of the ministry's renewed Hope Empowerment Program, where the Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Keruka Oyejiocha, was emphatic on eradication of poverty in the next 4 years.
Ministry. Number one is to make sure that poverty is reduced, if not completely eradicated. I dream that under our watch, with your support, that it's possible to eradicate poverty. Then also to create employment. Job creation is very key.
Well, in an effort to achieve global health equity in Nigeria, in collaboration with the World Health Organization and other partners, Nigeria has intensified efforts to combat malaria within its borders. This was brought to the fore as the country celebrates its 24th World Malaria Day with a theme, accelerating the fight against malaria for a more equitable world.
Now we have what we call the perfect storm that is facing also resistance.
We are working to empower every person, community, and country to be an equal, valued, and essential partner in the fight against malaria.
And those are the news highlights for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Victor and Claire after this break.
Fellow Nigerians, it is a good thing to be Nigerian. Good news! The Office of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is organizing the National Fabric Competition, the #One Nigeria Unity Fabric Competition. The aim is to create a fabric design that would be indigenous to Nigeria, showcasing our culture and unity. This competition is looking out for creativity, concept, and the message of unity. Open to Nigerian youths, both male and female, between the ages of 15 and 25 years. And guess what? You can apply wherever you are in the world as long as you are Nigerian. The winner of this competition goes home with a cash prize of 25 million naira. Are you sure I will not apply for this competition? Submission of entries close on Sunday, 30th of June 2024. Submit your entries by sending pictures of your designs via email to unityfabric.ofl24@statehouse.gov.ng, making sure you capture all parts of your designs. Together, let us unite Nigeria!
We are live in the open market for Epic 10X Challenge.
My people, today now.
Today, I will show you how the power of new Apic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so.
Impossible.
Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Apic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow.
You can now see that Apic is better than bleach.
Stop! No need to step out. Presenting the Good Night Power Shots. Spray 2 shots in each corner of the room. It kills mosquitoes inside without driving family outside. Good Night Power Shots. Spray inside, stay inside.
Bye, Mom.
He's going to play in this weather. Why did you let him go? He might fall ill.
And if he doesn't go out for practice, how will he win more trophies? To protect our family from illness-causing germs during the rainy season, we use Dettol soap every day.
Dettol with germ defense gives you protection. Raining season brings a lot of germs, and Dettol soap's germ defense protects you from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
Drink down, I'll go for it. Hey, life na highway. Be I just stay for my lane. Full speed ahead, oh, no limit in my way. God don't make them my path. Nourishment to give me spark. So I go shine my shine and I will go for it. Go, go, no limits, go for it. Go, go, drink down, I'll go for it.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Something new is about to hit your imagination of TV. A brand new sundial with StarTime's inbuilt technology. New TV innovation with an inbuilt decoder that connects you to both StarTime's antenna and satellite signal. StarTime Sundial TV, you can enjoy over 300 local and international channels, 1 month StarTime's highest bouquet for free, automatic system updates. More benefits, more affordable. StarTime Sundial TV is available in all StarTimes branches and dealers countrywide. StarTimes Inside, entertainment inbuilt.
This Saturday, Manchester United.
Masaka available. Menu. It's a great effort. What a goal!
Burnley.
Odegaard. Fofana.
Manchester United versus Burnley. Saturday, live on Sporty TV. Sporty Bet sponsors coverage of the English Premier League.
All right, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, and coming up next will be newspaper review.
Right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. Time for newspaper review. And Chukwudi Okoli is seated looking in the mood for Owambe.
Which Owambe?
Is it because it's Friday?
It's brand
Claire
new.
told me I look brand new.
Brand
Actually,
new.
I wanted to say I'm spanking new.
For Owambe.
And you're Owambeing me into whatever. That's not fair. This is serious business. Ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to be here.
And we're happy. And we're happy to have you with us.
Thank you.
Yes, so let's quickly take a look at the... yes, okay, go ahead.
Beginning with the blueprint here. And the major headline here is Aftermath of Ondo APC primaries. Rally behind Ayedatiwa Ganduje begs, okay, Akinfolari, Ibrahim, others. Says we cannot afford to lose to the opposition. Ex-Deputy Governor Agbolaja, he wins PDP ticket. Right, and then down there, downpour, jailbreak. FG considers relocating Suleja Correctional Facility. Confirms escape of 118 inmates, 10 recaptured. Well, some accounts say 119. Residents flee as soldiers withdraw after terror attack. That's in Niger. Okay, and we move quickly to the leadership. Leadership Friday. Also above the masthead, you have 119 inmates escape. FG may relocate Suleja prison. Okwama residents sent presentations to panel by courier. Okay, and the major headline says 11 months after subsidy removal, Nigerians still face fuel scarcity, long queues. That story is on page 4 with 2 riders. PMS sells for 690, 730, 800, 820, 900 naira in major cities. NNPC blames logistics issues, cautions against panic buying. Claire.
Okay, the Daily Sun has other stories, but it's leading with more hardship as telecom companies plan rate hike. Again, more hardship as telecom companies plan rate hike, and data voice services to be affected. So that's the lead story. Then just at the foot of the paper trending there, Boko Haram insurgents sack military camp in Niger community, an area near Shiroro. Army constructs over 40 roads and neutralizes 58 explosives is also trending. There are also other stories, just as 119 inmates escape as rainstorm destroys prison in Niger. So far, 10 of them have been recaptured. And as UK is supporting Nigeria's fight against malaria with £1 billion, and the federal government is saying, of course, the country is making progress against the scourge. And okay, I think those are the basic stories. So Chukwudi, what's your take? Let's still face the scarcity that just resurfaced yesterday.
Do we know the reason for it? How we start from there?
You know, I had to go to...
well, NNPC blames...
I am tired of mystery scarcity.
NNPC blames logistics.
Let me tell you, I was at Total,
yes,
a filling station just a few meters away from us here, just to do a live report of what was going on, because I couldn't get fuel to go home after the
my
day's
car
work.
is actually abandoned somewhere.
So we went the whole, round this central area, and the queues, the few filling stations were disbanded. So we had to do a live report at 6, and I was there, and believe me, no one was willing to give us accurate story. No one knew what was going on. Maybe station manager, is that what they are called, said that, Madam, you can see the tanker is there. We are about to offload. But nothing was going on. Yes. Really nothing was going on. Even some of those who were in queue said they were told to wait for 2 hours. That to offload, petrol from the tanker, yes, and other hoarding procedures will take about 2 hours. So I now breathe a sigh of relief to say, okay, nothing. So people were maybe panic buying.
You don't even blame those people. They are at the point of retail, maybe voiding if you like. So they may not even be in a position to tell you what has happened.
No, but they also play a part.
Exactly.
If they refuse to dispense, for instance.
What I'm interested in is going to the NNPCL, for instance. Let us hear something definitive.
Our correspondent...
Mystery scarcity should not happen in Nigeria
Yesterday, incidentally, there was fuel on the airport road. As
our
I didn't observe
Lydia
this morning.
Lydia Sampson reported from the NNPC to say, look, this is panic buying. The logistics issue had been resolved, and that there was no need, you know,
did anyone give further definition to logistics? You see, sweeping many things into one word that blinds many people does not quite solve issues.
Chooks, you know my concern.
But perhaps if you read the story, you might just find what is meant by logistics.
Yes.
You might find.
We'll find out.
But there were rumors. But I mean, we shouldn't
speculate.
Yes, rumors here. But you can't. They say out of every rumor, there is out of every what.
But we don't trade in rumors. Please
yes,
remember.
Yes, but what I find, concerning is or worrisome, is the fact that right in front of petrol stations, you find black markets. Yes, and the exorbitant price at which a liter is sold. Yesterday, a liter of petrol that's in front of Total, those hawking fuel, sold for 1,200 naira.
You want to know where those people are getting the fuel from. Because today, even if the filling station they're selling in front of doesn't sell fuel, you're going to see a lot of people with jerry can running after you. Who is selling the fuel to them? Who is benefiting from our present difficulty?
So, Chukwudi, what are you saying in terms of news, communication from the NNPC and this?
Let them just be definitive. Look, Homer sometimes nods is the English proverb for even the best makes mistakes. It depends on the number of people you're referring to. Homer sometimes nods. The NNPCL is not going to be God, become God. They are human. But when these things happen, be definitive. Tell us what it's all about. Communication is everything. That's part of the reason I really praise the current administration. The president, at a point, said, the Labour people, come and talk to me. He did a lot of things. But when you stay in that glass house and go and ask them whatever they're doing, it damages so many things. So communication is key. We undermine the impact of communication.
Lastly on that, before we move to another.
Yes.
The issue of black market racketeering, is it a helpless situation?
Let's not go to impunity. It's an overused word again, just like logistics, okay? The point is this. When a situation that does not encourage normality to happens, abnormality takes over. And when you, as the provider of that which should normalize the situation, you're doing things that are somewhat on the blink. They are not quite performing up to expectation. You're not going to have moral strength to come down hard. By the way, come down hard. Why I came hard on Dana Air by Kiyamo. You come down hard on something. Very important. So you can't come down hard on anybody because your corner is not quite tidy.
And Victor,
there are
this
many
is happening
areas where they need to come down hard. Not just in this issue of black markets and all of that. There are many areas where government needs to really, tighten the news and get results out of the basic sectors.
I'm also raising the issue that those black market, hawkers are doing so right in front of the force police headquarters, and are getting away with it.
The other time we said we should not begin to give the impression that it is no longer good to be good. Africa never thrived, in that situation. That's not how we lived. But somehow in our country, a huge population, a huge part of our population is beginning to think that it is no longer good to be good.
And then before we let you go, Chukwudi, 119 inmates escape again.
Yes, when what do they call them? Binary, the people, cryptocurrency people. When he escaped, what I asked was, who was sacked after he escaped? So it's the same thing I'm going to ask you here. Emotions cannot make a situation work well. You got to come down hard. Now that the aviation minister has given us an idiom to work on this morning, if you do not come down hard on certain things that should be frowned upon, you're going to introduce a situation where, you know,
the minister did.
After the escape, I want to hear that this person was dealt with because of the escape.
Indeed.
Then we'll have a stepping stone to further progressive discussion of our development as a people.
The minister did tacitly, you know, admit that they could have done better. You know, someone dropped the ball, because I did hear him question, you know, if you had X number of people on guard duty, how do you allow unarmed people to, you know, just by the collapse of fence, to go breaking cells and
let me say
escaping?
this. In the current administration, I see some ministers who are forthright. I don't know whether it's their youthfulness. It's a plus for us.
But at the end of the day, like you say, it is who...
sanctioning those who need to be sanctioned,
know.
and
So
taking remedial action where you need to take remedial action.
Is it just at the point of, you know, granting interviews or public...
That's it.
At the end of the day, that goes away.
You know, Chukwudi, I know Victor will sign you up soon. Just to touch on it, and it's a very...
Quickly,
yes.
Get on it.
The telecom companies, you know, planning to, of course...
the director is threatening.
High rates and all that. So... that's another issue. We probably don't have the time.
It's easy. Let's just say
communication. In 10 seconds.
Communication is not a luxury. Telephony is not a luxury.
Okay.
We're not asking that it be subsidized, but let them have a heart, because we need to reach out to one another.
All right, Chukwudi Okolubaja, thank you very much for being here this morning. We'll see you again Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
God willing.
In the meantime, let me go and retrieve my car.
All right, go retrieve it. And
thank you.
Good Morning Nigeria returns after this break.
A good farmer is a craftsman of the highest order. It is said, great farmer, great nation. No farmer, no nation. Yes, let's set the ball rolling to build that great Nigeria where good food is in abundance, affordable and easily accessible. The Renewed Hope Initiative, RHI, an initiative of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON, is aligning with the vision and aspiration of the administration of President Bola Tinubu, GCFR, and is organizing the Every Home a Garden competition. The competition is under the scope of agriculture of the Renewed Hope Initiative. For the competition, women are encouraged to immediately plant a garden at home, such that the harvest can provide adequate food on their table and enough to give their neighbor. This competition is open to only women. She must be a first-time farmer. The garden must be in her home, and it is open to women in every state of the Federation and the FCT. Interested participants should do a 30-second video and a picture of the garden, which indicates its location, to the office of the First Ladies of their various states. The winner of this competition will be announced in December 2024, and the winner of the competition goes home with 20 million naira. Women, join the train. Be part of the food revolution in Nigeria. What are you waiting for? Let's get to work. This message is by the Renewed Hope Initiative, RHI, an initiative of the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, CON.
Bye, Mom. He's going to play in this weather. Why did you let him go? He might fall ill.
And if he doesn't go out for practice, how will he win more trophies? To protect our family from illness-causing germs during the rainy season, we use Dettol soap every day.
Dettol with germ defense gives you protection. Raining season brings a lot of germs, and Dettol soap's germ defense protects you from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
Guess what's back on your screens? Family Feud Nigeria Season 2.
Family Feud, we don't come home.
The entertainment is over the top.
I'm elevating, sorry, not to victory. This silly chick is not to beat me down my wig, homie.
And the families are ready to slug it out.
I really hate my dash friend.
With the prize money doubled to 5 million naira. Be prepared for double the fun and excitement. Catch Family Feud Nigeria on
counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigeria means unity.
Nigeria means freedom to me.
Nigeria means greatness to me.
Nigeria is indivisible. There is nothing you can do. We all have to savage it together and learn to love each other. We are indivisible.
As a mother and a leader, I will always preach for peace and unity in this country, because that is the only thing that will give us progress. Though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand, and it is the woman that does that.
This Saturday,
Wonderful again. Andri, Wirtz. Nifty turn, Wirtz!
Leverkusen,
On he goes, it's Girassi!
VfB Stuttgart,
Letter of Koch. Girassi in support, he's not going to need it!
Now Xhaka!
Leverkusen versus VfB Stuttgart, Saturday, live on Sporty TV.
Sporty Bet sponsors coverage of the German Bundesliga.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and it's live on the network service of the NTA, reaching you from our Abuja studio. Our conversation today is on accelerating progress in malaria elimination and, of course, reducing malaria burden. Let's take this background report by our correspondent Abdul Salam Chupre before we commence our conversation.
Eradicating malaria has been a major public health goal for over a century.
According to Tedros Ghebreyesus, Director General of the World Health Organization (WHO), defeating malaria is absolutely critical to ending poverty, improving the health of millions, and enabling future generations to reach their full potentials. This certainly underscores the urgent need to curb malaria, which, according to the World Malaria Report of 2022, reveals there were 249 million cases of malaria in 2022, compared to 244 million cases in 2021. The report also reveals that the estimated number of malaria deaths stood at 608,000 in 2022, compared to 610,000 in 2021. The WHO states that Africa carries a high share of the global malaria burden, with 94% of all malaria cases and 95% of deaths in 2022. Children under 5 years of age accounted for about 78% of all malaria deaths on the continent. The WHO also says 4 African countries accounted for just over half of all malaria deaths worldwide, with Nigeria having about 26.8%, the Democratic Republic of the Congo with 12.3%, Uganda 5.1%, and Mozambique 4.2%. After about 30 years of research, there are now vaccines that helps prevent the spread of malaria. The R21 vaccine is the second malaria vaccine recommended by the WHO, following the RTSS vaccine, which received a WHO recommendation in 2021. The global health body maintains that both vaccines have shown to be safe and effective in preventing malaria in children, and when implemented broadly, is expected to have high public health impact. Last year, UNICEF says 12 countries across Africa were to receive 18 million doses of the malaria vaccine over the next 2 years to introduce the vaccine into their routine immunization programs. Accounting for a high percentage of the malaria burden globally and having been excluded from the list of countries, Nigeria, in April 2023, approved the R21 vaccine. As Nigeria join the rest of the world to commemorate World Malaria Day? What successes have been recorded in the fight against malaria so far? What is the status of the R21 vaccine for Nigeria? And are there measures in place to tackle those unwilling to accept the vaccine? These and more guests on the program will be speaking to shortly.
Okay, thank you very much, Abdusalam Jubril, for the background report. And our guests are already seated here, indeed a full house. But let me begin with Dr. Godwin Ntadom, National Coordinator, National Malaria Elimination Program, Federal Ministry of Health. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, everyone.
And then we also have Dr. Isaac Akuma-Egboja, Public Health Specialist. We thank you for joining us again.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Claire.
Yes, and Dr. Adirunke Akonde is the Acting Director, Disease Control, FCT. It is, of course, it's a pleasure to have you with us, sir.
The pleasure
Dr. Akonde,
mine.
thank you very much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
We also have Dr. Doris Jaffert John. She's FCT Director of Public Health as well. We thank you for joining us, Dr. John.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning. And from our Kano studio, we'll be joined by Professor Issa Sadiq Abubakar. If we can have him on screen. Thank you. Professor Abubakar, thank you very much. And you are Director Center for Infectious Diseases Research at the Bayero University in Kano. We're glad that you could join us from Kano.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you once again for joining us on an important day. It's a day, of course, set aside for us to, again, evaluate, where we're coming from in terms of efforts to reduce malaria burden. And as the theme for this year suggests, see if we can make progress. And fortunately, we've seen a mark of progress coming in from the UK, yes, with the donation of some money to support Nigeria's fight. But Dr. Ntadom, again, from the statistics our correspondent gave, the devastation of malaria is still there. We are beholding the devastations put, into reality in terms of number of deaths, mortality, and all that. But are we doing well in terms of coming together, joining hands to say no to malaria?
Thank you very much for that question. Well, when you want to ask whether Nigeria is doing well in the area of malaria control, we just say we moderately well, because if you look at it globally, malaria is still, Nigeria is still the country with the largest burden. Not only largest, a third of the entire global burden of malaria is in Nigeria. But if you look at it internally, what have we done? We've made some progress, because from 2015, when we have the prevalence to be 27%, we have moved to 22% in 2021. And if you assess again, as we are going to do before the end of this year, we may have gone much down in the prevalence, because our target is to bring it to 10% by the end of 2025. So I would say we've achieved some moderate results.
That's at the national level, because the statistics you're giving us is the national statistics, isn't it?
No, it's not national. The national, there is no place to call national. We are talking about
progress.
Nigeria data, because yes, we is the aggregation of all the states' data. We have some states that are doing very well, some states that are not too good in their performance. But when you now bring it together, you get the average for the country. So what I'm giving you is the national, which comprises of all the states in the country
but that
and
sounds,
FCT.
That sounds like progress, but no progress. Progress, if you indices here, but we still bear the highest burden.
Yes.
It's still where it is. So what is missing? Because every year, or even less frequently than that, we get to do this talk over it? What exactly is missing?
Well, I must bring in the perspective of our coordinating minister and the Minister for State. When they came on board, they looked at this as a challenge also. And that is why the Honorable Minister, the coordinating minister and the Minister for State and the entire ministry, they are looking at rethinking malaria in Nigeria. What is it that is missing? What are those things that we need to add to what we are doing presently? And the Honorable Ministers have set May 3rd for this activity. It's going to be a global meeting likened to what we had in 2000 when the then head of state summoned or invited all the presidents across the world to where malaria was. So I think this will be another version of it where all the global players in the field of malaria will be in Nigeria to witness and to hear what are the challenges, what are the things we need to add to what we are doing, and several other things. So it's being planned by the coordinating minister and the Minister for State for next week.
Okay, Dr. Doris John, we want to at least look at, the communities because the aggregation of our progress, national progress, is, derived from, what is happening, within the communities. And I'm going to repeat the same question I asked him. We are seeing the devastation, in terms of mortality and, the debilitation and all that caused by malaria. But are we also putting our hands together at the community level? And I'm using the FCT now, where you supervise. What is the condition like in terms of malaria burden?
Thank you very much. For us in the FCT, the prevalence of malaria hovers between 20–21%, which is very high. And a recent study in AMAC, Abuja Municipal Area Council, recorded a prevalence of malaria to be as high as 54%, which is very, very high. And in the FCT, for us, we are in the communities. We work together with the area council health departments, and in terms of improving the health services. As the theme for this year talks about enhancing the fight against malaria in order to achieve equity. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves is that, does everyone in these communities have access to healthcare services?
Sorry, before you even go there, I like you because you raised two issues. Now, the data emanating from the FCT generally, yes, and that from AMAC. Do we know, factors that are, facilitating this increase, this burden? Do we know what exactly are those factors?
Yeah, we're looking at, if you look at most of these cases, especially in the under 5, they're found among the children from low socioeconomic families, children of mothers with low educational background. Of course, if you look at these things put together, you would agree with me that one of the major reasons is the health-seeking behavior of some of our people. The mother who is less educated is economically disadvantaged on accessing care or preventive measures for her child or for her family. Also, the decision-making powers, such women don't have them. They need to depend on the husband or whoever their partners are to give them the to enable them to access care and some of these preventive measures that should be available in the family. So when you lack these things, you would agree with me that the process or the access to all these preventive or treatment are not there. So for me, I think these are some of the things that we need to look at. These factors, how do we empower this woman from the village or from the rural communities to take care of her child, or to have access to maybe an insecticide-treated net, or for the pregnant woman who is at risk of malaria to have access to antenatal care, during which she can have access to the intermittent preventive treatment for pregnant women in the communities.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Doris John. I just the 54% prevalence caught my attention, which is quite high, and that's why I'm going to pose my next question to Dr. Akonde. If we have this much burden in under 5 children in the heart of the Federal Capital Territory, is there a challenge with, disease control, which happens to be your own forte?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. Just like it has been rightly put, the prevalence of malaria is still very high, and malaria is still endemic, very much endemic in the tropical region, in which Nigeria is taking the lead. About 27% of the burden is in Nigeria. And coming home, which is hammock that has been raised here, when you look closely, the structure of hammock is like an unsteady population in which you have a settlement today, tomorrow they are no longer there. It's already demolished. And this is a prominent risk factor to malaria. So malaria is common among under 5 children, just like it has been rightly mentioned by the Director of Public Health. Beyond this, the socioeconomic status and behavioral factors also affect their predisposition to this particular disease. In a situation where an estate or a settlement is brought down, suddenly people are displaced, exposed, and mostly these are young children and women, the vulnerable group. So most of the time, they are being bitten by mosquito. There won't be malaria if there is no mosquito bite. So the focus should be on that particular one when we get to control measures. Beyond socioeconomic and cultural behavior, health-seeking behavior has been mentioned. Another factor is poverty. A lot of people do not even have enough funds to access care, not to talk of even testing. Majority of people who supposed to get tested are not being tested. There was a national survey that put testing and detection of the parasite at about 13.8% as against 80% target that we have. That means a lot still needs to be done regarding the aspect of testing. With that being said, for you to control malaria, there are processes. Vector that we mentioned, which is female Anopheles mosquito, is everywhere. And I can't remember when last we did area spraying. Just if we look back, there were those days when you see helicopter hoofing around your roof, you begin to wonder, what are they doing? So all these are no longer in existence. I think we need to look closely into that as well, because there's not much funding in the aspect of vector control.
But is that why they disappeared? I'm sorry to cut now. When you say all these are no more in existence, why did they disappear?
That's what I'm saying, that when we get to the control measure, those are the actions that the government needs to take, the policy makers need to look into as well. Because if you don't control the vector, there is no way you can control malaria. So the aspect of larval source management is still grossly underfunded. The funds are not sufficient enough. Only a few states implement this, and it is being done haphazardly. And FCT is part of those states. So we are not being left out. So moving from vector now, let's go to testing. You can either test by rapid diagnostic test or microscopy.
Sorry, Doctor, I didn't care. I'm really sorry to stop you, because if you give us all this, then you would have ended our program. So we want to really understand, yes, what is happening, why our progress is stunted. Okay. We want to really understand if the epidemiology of malaria now, is also mutating in time, in line with the climatic, with the environment and all that. Yeah. So I'm sorry to have interjected. No. Yes, because we are actually going to what we need to do, actionable steps to be able to achieve, the objective for this year. Okay. So that's why I'm going to bring in Dr. Boja to probably help us understand the epidemiology of malaria now. It will appear that it is environment specific. Dr. John talked about people of low social, background, presenting, with the highest malaria data and all that. What do we know now about how malaria, transmits?
Well, in addition to what has been said, one of the major reasons why the incidence is still very high is the overcrowded living situation that we have. If in this room we're about 7 here, for example, and none of us has malaria parasite in our system, all the mosquitoes in the world can bite and circulate around us. Nobody will get malaria. But as soon as one of us has malaria parasite in his or her system, when mosquito bites that person and goes to bite another person, that's when transmission occurs. Mm-hmm. So in a crowded environment where one or two or many people are already infected, you expect the incidence of malaria to be going up because it is spreading around. So overcrowding is a factor. The vector control that has been talked about is a factor. Our environment generally is not optimal. Our environmental sanitation is very poor. You have refuse everywhere. You have water stagnated everywhere. You have exposed small vessels with water or some kind of moist condition that mosquitoes can thrive. And those encourage mosquitoes to breed and to multiply. So when you have poor environmental sanitation, overcrowding, and again, when you come to the under 5 children that has just been mentioned, we have many of them that are malnourished. When you have a malnourished child that is infected by a malaria parasite, the severity of that person's malaria is higher than the normal, than a child that is well nourished. So all these factors, and then the living condition. You notice that mosquitoes bite at night, not during the day, especially the female Anopheles mosquito that is mentioned. And it is when it is dark that mosquito likes to move around and bite. So do we have light that will drive them away? The answer is not enough. Are we living in a very clean environment, good sanitation, refuges are disposed of, no stagnant water, and if there is any water that is stagnant, is it covered with oil so that mosquito larvae cannot survive in it? No, the answer is no to that. Do we have children that are well nourished, that even if they have infection of malaria, it will be very minimal and it will be controlled? The fear of death will not be there. Is that the situation? The answer is no.
See, there's an issue about demolition, the constant pulling down of structures and all that. And I'm trying to link it. Dr. Boja, can you find a nexus?
Not too much. Not too much, because these demolitions are sporadical. They are not always taking place. And it is not everywhere. If you go to Nyanya, for example, you have a lot of malaria cases in Nyanya. Nobody is demolishing in Nyanya now, for example. Go to Mararaba. Why am I mentioning all these places? Because they are overcrowded. These are very highly populated areas. And the refuse disposal in those areas are very bad. If you go there, you see a lot of water in gutters. You see a lot of stagnant little ponds around houses. You see a lot of grasses right into the back of people's yards. All these are areas where mosquitoes can breed. So the demolition issue is, well, you can't rule it out completely, but it's not a major issue because demolition is not always taking place. And when you demolish and people move, it's only for a few days, after which they find themselves somewhere. So the exposure to mosquito, for that reason, that particular reason, is only temporary. But the issue of vector control is very important. But let me go to what should be done that you were asking.
I think we should hold on to what should be done.
Because
okay.
I wanted to head to Kanu, to our Kanu studio where Professor Issa Sadiq has been patiently waiting. Thank you very much, Prof, for your patience. Make your input in this conversation. A lot of factors. Nigeria doesn't seem to be making a lot of progress when it comes to malaria. And I wonder, is Nigeria worst in all of these conditions? Is Nigeria the most tropical, for instance? Dr. Boja talked about, somebody has talked about, demolishing structures, movement of people, such people from place to place, and all of those. But is Nigeria the worst in all of these circumstances so as to have the magnitude of burden that it currently has?
Thank you very much for this question. For me, if we want to look at the factors that are facilitating the endemicity of malaria in Nigeria, I would like to look at it from the triangle of infectious diseases. Number one, you will have to look at the vector, the agent itself, the causative agent of malaria, which we are talking about Plasmodium, and 90% of cases we are talking about Plasmodium falciparum. And then we look at the people, that's the susceptible hosts, who are liable to getting malaria, and then the environment. So in all these three areas, Nigeria, you can explain the Nigerian situation in all of this. Let me start by the environment. Because of our population, you all know that Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa. And of course, people have been saying that if you meet any 4 Africans, 1 is a Nigeria. So this is talking about large population, I'm sure related to large population density in most urban areas. In the past, urban areas had the lower burden compared to rural areas, but because of the increased urbanization, people coming to create overpopulated municipalities across the nation, and with the human behavior of using the facilities in the urban areas and being careless with refuse and all waste products. And of course, these provide breeding places for the vectors that facilitate the multiplication of Plasmodium. And because we are not taking any action in trying to control the vectors as much as we should, definitely the vectors are increasing in number, and as a result of that, among them, those that are infected with the Plasmodium are also increasing. And this makes it possible for greater infection. Now, if we look at the hosts, people have mentioned before me the human behavior, and one area that one should talk about is the issue of long-lasting insecticidal nets that should have created a barrier between the mosquitoes and man. Still, the utilization pattern in this country is not pleasant, in the sense that if you look at the prevalence of utilization, it is still very low compared to what it should be. And this is a very important factor in ensuring that if we have been using it, it will bring the prevalence low. And again, people have mentioned the health-seeking behavior, late presentation in the hospitals. Many people still utilize patent medicine vendors that may be treating malaria inappropriately. Suboptimal treatment is still ongoing. And then the last aspect, if you look at the organisms themselves, of course, just as human beings, we are always trying to look for strategies to fight the organisms. They are also trying to find ways of subverting our measures. So, and a lot of researchers have been showing that the plasmodia are changing their habits, the mosquitoes are evading the measures we are taking. So when you look at all these factors, especially with our population, and the fact that this is a fight that requires a lot of financial resources, which we are not dedicating to the fight against malaria, then one will not be surprised that Nigeria is where it is in considering the prevalence of malaria.
So, Issa Sadiq Abubakar, thank you very much. I don't know if Dr. Ntadam would agree that we are still where we are in the fight against malaria. I know we've moved a lot right from the days of the MDGs. We made substantial progress during the MDGs to we started with rollback malaria, then there was kick out malaria, there was the end malaria and all that. And all the measures that I'm sure you are going to give us today, with regards to prevention, treatment and management. I mean, these measures have been there. I don't know if you're going to tell us any new thing about it. So, Dr. Ntadam, is it an absence of what to do, lack of what to do, or the fact that we cannot sustain what we have been doing? I remember in those days, I mean, health officials were going around rural communities distributing these long-lasting insecticidal nets, and people were using them. And at a stage, they came out with complaints about those nets, and nothing was said about those complaints.
Okay, thank you very much for those observations and questions. I think one common thing that we've all discussed there, a common factor, that is vector control. Vector control is very important. If you think of elimination, the first area your mind will go to, how do we reduce the population of the vectors? And it's a known vectors. Like has been said also, we have the most effective vector in Nigeria, which is Anopheles gambiae SM. And this is the one that transmits most of the parasites, and they are sharp biters. Let me say sharp shooters.
Indeed, when
they
you
perch and
you hit your ears like that.
But the challenge, like Professor Issa said also, is the use of these measures, human behaviors. Several millions of nets have been distributed in this country. But our assessment, 2023, shows that of all the nets that we have, about 34 to 36% of the population are actually those who sleep under the net. Not only that, let's come back to FCT.
Do you sleep under the net?
Okay, I'm going to explain again. When you deploy...
But do you sleep under the net?
I will explain, and it will give us a better perspective. Now, net is not the only vector control measure. When you are thinking of the populace, what can be afforded, what can be used, sustained, we talk of net. There are some of us here, and if I ask you the same question, your answer will be no. And the reason is because you can afford other measures. You can buy insecticide. Your windows are netted. With all these measures, if you have it, why would you want to add insecticide? Treated net in a house that you know is already well protected? You flit your house, you use your AC.
The windows have nets.
The windows are not even open because the ACs are working all the time. So But when you now go outside, because when you come to the urban area, malaria in the urban area is actually, we describe it as meso-endemic. That means it is very low. But where we have the challenges, when you are talking about hollow endemicity of malaria, is when you move to the rural areas. These people, they don't have lights, they live in huts, the doors are open, they have all the things that can, that can breed mosquitoes around them. And in such a situation, they sleep. And the emphasis also for the use of nets is more to pregnant women and children that are less than 5 years, because these are the vulnerable population. You may have malaria and still be able to manipulate, go around, do your basic things. But these people don't have enough things to protect them against the disease. A child who is less than 5 years is most likely to die as a result of malaria rather than an adult. In fact, we joke with it. I have malaria, but I can't miss this party. And it's true. That is what we do all the time. And like I wanted to talk about the FCT. The last time net was distributed in FCT was over 80 years ago. Yes. So if you see this long, and the people in the rural area, they depend on the government sometimes because most of them cannot afford it. The average cost of a net unsubsidized is about $4.
And you can't rely on the ones being hawked,
Yes, so these are the things, these are the measures that we felt sometimes state government. Then another outside the net, we can also talk about the individual community efforts. Professor Dr. Goja talked about it. What are they doing in the environment to protect themselves? Simple measure. You mentioned it, and this is, if you have a stagnant water around you, pour oil. The larva that develops a mosquito,
just very simple as that.
As simple as that.
Please, can you repeat?
What kind of oil?
Any oil.
Kind of
Engine oil.
Even red oil.
Red. In fact, if it's your well, because you see some well, because they don't close them well,
yes,
they begin to breed. You see, open the well in the morning, and you see mosquitoes coming out. Put granite oil. Granite oil will not kill anybody. And those the granite oil you are poured on that oil, sorry, on that water, will form a silk on top of that water. And because the larvae breathe air, though they're inside water, but they still come out to breathe. It's like you are suffocating them. And they will die. As simple as that.
How much oil now?
You see, the oil, scientifically, oil does not like lying on top of each other. They form, they spread. So once we pour some air, it spreads like a silk, like you are covering it with a leather, and suffocate them. So if it's water you are not using like gutter, you can use your engine oil. Pour it there, and it will kill all this larvae. Because as long as we keep on breeding mosquitoes in our neighborhood, to fight malaria will be in the defensive rather than being offensive to these vectors.
Okay, we are beginning to get to the nitty-gritty of what to do to accelerate. And I like this very point because, I mean, that's a very simple, cheap way of, attacking the vector. Just pour oil if you have,
but there is another, because we are here now talking about it. It's okay for you and I to hear, maybe those who are watching, but Dr. John, would you say that awareness campaigns are a bit short? Because if you are able to talk to the people and let them know that you could do this and that are actually cost effective, maybe we won't be where we are.
I would not say awareness is short. One thing you should also look at the behavior of these people. Even those who have the mosquito nets, like he said, how many of them are using them?
Because people complain about them.
When you give out these nets, there are instructions. Oh, before you use the net, you air it for so number of hours. Are they complying? Are they actually following instructions? Some of them don't even, they just go get these mosquitoes. If you go to the mosquito nets, you go to the villages and some communities, they use it in their gardens. Instead of sleeping under it, they use it to cover their vegetable gardens so that insects will not eat them. Some use them to fish. So it's one thing for me to give you the net, it's another thing for you to use it. That's why even in that 2015, when we had the last net distribution campaign, immediately after the campaign, we went for survey, and the utilization was a sultry 13 or 16%, just a few weeks after the distribution. So that is something we also need to look at. It's difficult to get people to change their behavior, but we're not going to give up because they're not changing. We have to keep talking. We have to also, there are certain things that you don't have to wait for the government to do, like all the refuse around your house. Some you go out and you see the heaps of refuse, even when they come and evacuate. A few hours later, it's back to status quo.
So John, is it advisable on that net,
yes,
on the net issue, is it advisable, I just raised it earlier, is it advisable to buy from those hawking? Because you also see those, you know, the hawkers asking you to buy even branded insecticide nets. Is it advisable for people to buy off the hawkers?
It's not advisable. It's not advisable because you don't know the sources of these nets. Some of them can, I'm sorry to say, might just pick any net, not necessarily treated, and seal them. Anyone can produce the package and seal it. So that's why for us, pregnant mothers, pregnant women, when they go for antenatal, they are supposed to be giving these nets. Yes, mothers, when you come to the hospital with your child, especially the under 5, they are supposed to be giving these nets. When your child completes their immunization, on the last day, when they're giving their certificate, they're expected to give them nets.
But does this still happen in the FCT, given that you said the last
actually it's not really been happening sustainably recently. So I think one thing we should also look at is why, the question we should ask ourselves, why are these things no longer happening? My colleagues here have mentioned it. The level of funding that was made available for these control programs, I believe, are no longer there. So most of the programs, control programs that we have, are donor dependent. And as long as you're depending on donors, there is no hope for sustainability. These donors are not going to be here forever. Once they leave, what happens? Everything comes to a standstill.
Like the HIV, you know, scenario, for instance.
So that's, I think it's...
Dr. Boja.
Funding.
Yes, I you know, in every situation, in every challenge, you know, that we raise, you know, concerning development, there's issue of funding. But let's look at how we can get a change, you know, of behavior, you know, towards addressing the issue of malaria, because it's us. A greater responsibility is on us, you know, take action. How can we get people to begin to take action?
Well, I was talking earlier about what we can do and what we should be doing.
Yes.
One of the things that we should be doing now is making sure that we get the vaccines that have already been developed, the R21 and RTS that was developed about 3.5 years ago and recommended by the WHO that they are safe, they are reasonably affordable. When you consider the amount of money that individuals spend in treating one episode of malaria, it will be better to use that money to buy the vaccine that will prevent you from getting malaria on a long run. So I would recommend that we go for the vaccines, especially the under 5s. I would recommend that we double our efforts on achieving the sustainable
development goals.
Yes, goals, because environmental sanitation is one of them. Of course, health generally is one of them, number 3. So if our environments, this vector issue, if our environments are clean, no stagnant water, no refuse left unattended to, grasses are not grown into the house, and every day you make sure that you sweep, you keep your house clean, mosquitoes will be less in number. There is a research going on where they try to sterilize male mosquitoes so that they will not be able to pregnant female mosquitoes. But that research has not been developed much because of money. Because otherwise, that's one very easy way of controlling malaria in a few years. If you get a lot of male mosquitoes that are sterile, and you let them go, and they go all over the place and do their work, we will end up with no pregnant mosquitoes, and therefore no spread of malaria.
But before we even get to that, to that research, and then you know, to address the issue of funding, because she's also raised the issue of funding, which is an important factor. So, what other measure, you know, that is cheap, that it's practicable at the moment, that we can employ, you know, to accelerate progress? There must be, you know, actionable steps that we can begin to take, like, you know, again, buy this insecticide. Don't buy, it's free. Please go for pregnant women, when you get to the antenatal centers, ask for these nets. These are, you know, things that we can begin to do in the immediate. You know, pour oil on the surface of stagnant water, like you say. Like, are there other measures that we can begin to employ?
Yes. Policy-wise, for example, if you notice in our country, every time we have a minister, there's a change of focus. We talked recently, presently, for example, we have a minister who has a public health background, who is focused on this problem we're talking about now, amongst others. If tomorrow now he leaves the office and another minister comes in, and that minister does not maintain the same focus and attention and assignment of resources to what we are talking about, the control of malaria, what will happen is we're back to square one. If you notice, I don't want to be specific, but if you notice in the last few years, some of the issues we are talking about now were almost silent. Nobody was talking about them. Dr. Ntadim and I were working on malaria control many years ago, writing proposals to a Global Fund for funds to support Nigeria. The money we get from Global Fund, I don't know how much now, is not as much as we used to get. One, there's donor fatigue. And this is why I'm talking about what I'm talking about now, policy. It means then that we should look inwards. It means then that we will have to do things by ourselves. If we get that support from outside, fine. If we don't get it, we should continue. And the only way we can continue is to be consistent in our policies, consistent in our implementation, consistent in our drive.
But these things demand money. And when you talk about...
Yes, I'm coming. Yes, I'm coming. They require money. If you recall, one of the programs we did recently, one of the things that I talked about was this issue of fundraising, budgeting, prioritizing our needs at all levels. It is not enough for the federal government to be doing everything that it should be doing. And some states are doing and others are not doing. And when you go beyond the state to the local government level, it is almost zero. We need to be able to do vertical coordination, federal to state, state to local government to communities, and do the lateral ones too. Lateral meaning at the federal level, for example, we have partners, we have WHO, we have UNICEF, we have USAID, you have others that are also contributing. There's a need to coordinate very well, effectively. We need to know how much each person is bringing to the table. If you ask about malaria now, there are many NGOs that are running around. They do malaria control. But the question is, what are they really bringing to the table? How much are they really contributing? Are they just there physically, or are they really contributing? And if they are, in what areas? Sometimes we don't even know where they are working, and what concrete achievements they are making. And if you go to the state level, it's the same thing. There are local NGOs all over the place in many states. But what each person is bringing to the table is questionable. We need to be able to coordinate all this. There are monies here and there, but if you don't coordinate them, then there is no money.
Yes, because thank you, because I wanted us to take a cue from what happened, with funding of the HIV and AIDS. When the donors were pumping in money, I mean, we knew what happened and the effort we made. And then when that, dropped, we also need the challenge. So why don't we begin to think, be proactive, instead of waiting for when the donors the funding will stop. Now we've gotten £1 billion, pounds from UK. So what if UK tomorrow decides that, look, we're not supporting you anymore? What can we do? Why can't we begin to look inwards and domesticate our funding, so that we can begin to, do things again locally? So Professor Abubakar, I don't know what you think about that.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. The network is shaking.
I'm just wondering what we can do to begin to domesticate the funding of some of these measures, because if we keep relying on foreign donations and foreign aid, there'll be a time when those donations will not come, will stop, and then we are back to square one. So what do we begin to do at the moment so that we begin to grow, domesticate our own resources and our own measures?
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I think that one thing we need, first of all, is to have a better political will from our political leaders. And for that to happen, people who are at the helm of affairs in the health sector, in this case, should advocate to the political leaders. I know that the current coordinating minister of health has a lot of goodwill from bodies outside the country, but the minister and the team need to convince our political leaders, starting from the president to the state governors and even the local government chairman, to prioritize health. Let health be in every agenda. And of course, by the time they increase their political will, then budgeting will also improve, and that means more funding coming to the health sector. And of course, this funding must be evidence-based. Every intervention that is supposed to take place should be budgeted for in terms of naira and kobo, up to the last kobo. And that is, and for the political leaders, not to do the usual. You bring a budget, all they need to do is to give you a ceiling or to reduce the amount without listening to the sense of reasoning. And if we are to look for sources of funding for this, apart from the regular ones that governments generate from the customs, from the sale of oil, from all other sources, I think we should look into taxation and pay more priority attention to it. This is one area that is likely to bring more money into the government purse and for utilization, and health should get a lion's share. And apart from the regular tax, people should be willing to pay their tax, because without people funding the government through tax, it is also bad on our own side. That's the masses. Of course, I know all the problems we are facing, we are not getting enough, but then if the tax are paid regularly and they are utilized for the purposes they are meant for, including placing taxes on industries, on commercial activities, on goods of ostentation, and so on and so forth, I'm sure more money will come into the government purse, and then the government is expected to provide these resources as at when due, so that they will be used by the health sector. I believe that at the level of, like, the Department of Public Health, where the malaria elimination program sits, they are trying their measures, but I'm sure their hands are tied in some cases because of inadequate finance. Because one area that people have been talking about this morning is in the area of vector control. I know that they are making effort to decentralize the vector control sites, because I know this because Dr. Ntadom and team have visited our center to make it one of the sentinel sites for vector control. But of course, I know that the problem of resources is making it not happening at the speed that it should. So we can, corporate social responsibility is one other area that government should engage the industry so that they will also contribute. And then ensuring that, as people have been mentioned, like Dr. Egboja mentioned, the issue of lack of coordination of the resources being brought in by the donor partners or partners in general. If we can implement the basket funding, where the government will be on the driving seat, so that every contributor to the finances is bringing something and they are looking to see how their funds are being utilized. I think this will make for better coordination, and hopefully the resources will be larger in amount, and then with everybody monitoring the utilization, hopefully the money will be utilized for the purpose needed, and then we will be better off in terms of control of not only malaria, but many of the problems that are disturbing us in this country.
Professor Abubakar, thank you very much for your contributions. Let's pause here for a break so that we can regain some strength and come back to finish off the program just in a moment.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying deeper, we make solutions.
The people of Nigeria live very peacefully with one another.
I think diversity helps a lot to enhance robust development in Nigeria.
All over the country, you have so many ethnic groups, over 250. That is enough to tell you that this is a blessed country, and that God has kept together as one indivisible entity.
This Sunday, Napoli.
Played back in by Kvaratskhelia, and Victor Osimhen has restored.
Roma. Napoli versus Roma. Live on Sporty TV.
Sporty Bet sponsors coverage of the Italian Serie A.
All right, welcome back, and you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We are just about winding down, so we'll now begin to look specifically at what we can do. But Dr. Kende, I want to ask you a question, and this is because of your role as a disease control, expert. And I'm wondering, is there any blood group or genotype that is probably more susceptible to, malaria? Because I've heard some people say, look, because I am AA or O+, I hardly come down with malaria, while the reverse is the case. Is there anything like that?
Okay, yes. There has been a lot of misconception pertaining to blood group and genotype as related to coming down with malaria. Although from findings, we discovered that people with genotype AA hardly get malaria, but when it happens, it's usually severe. Unlike AS and SS. So in AS is perceived as if, okay, they have resilience to cope with the pathogenesis and the complications that comes with malaria. But these are just misconceptions, and pertaining to SS, the risk is much higher in them actually because of the health status of the sickle shape red blood cell in them, which could tilt them into a lot of crisis. So we don't even encourage exposure that could lead to malaria infection in SS. And pertaining to what can be done actually in malaria prevention, leveraging on this year's theme, which is built on accelerating the fight, against malaria towards equitable, community. From that tune of that theme, you will discover that a lot of fight is still needed to conquer malaria. That means we need to really, really strategize. And a lot has been said earlier on regarding coordination. This is quite important. Unfortunately, no country is self-sufficient enough to, to tackle this menace in the tropical region and subtropical region, as we said. So we still have to partner. All our partners still have to come together to join forces with the existing, structure and system in Nigeria to help us to fight this particular preventable disease that is leading to death of a lot of people. The angle I would like to bring in is that apart from the funds coordination, we also need to look critically into procurement and supply chain to all these preventive measures like long-lasting insecticide-treated nets that we've discussed a lot about. Different spots of interventions are happening across the country because of lack of coordination. So you can't get to know what every donor agency is doing. So if we are able to put all this together, it will be able to help us to reach the vulnerable people that we are to focus on, to ensure equity, to also ensure their human right is protected. And these are mostly people in the hard-to-reach area, in the poor community, the vulnerable, the displaced, internally displaced people who live in camps because of the exposure to this particular parasite, malaria mosquito that is biting everyone. Apart from this, we also need to strengthen the preventive measures in pregnant women, which is about, we call it IPT, intermittent preventive treatment in pregnant mothers. We use a particular fancider in those days, and I don't want to mention a particular brand. We call it sulfadoxine pyrimethamine, to give to pregnant women on few occasions during pregnancy to protect them as well as the baby, so that they don't have complications like anemia, stillbirth, abortion, and all that is related to their health, and that
when they do come down during pregnancy, what should they do?
When they do come down with malaria symptoms, they are supposed to be tested. Then following the testing, they are being treated, not by anyhow, not at the patent medicine store. The treatment should be done by a professional, the gynecologist and obstetrician, who will be able to determine what stage of pregnancy they are to ensure which particular anti-malaria is actually safe for that specific period of pregnancy, to avoid complication that comes with dosaging and treatment.
So they shouldn't just go to the chemist or pharmacist, you know, to get any prescription of anything. Don't just do self medication.
Another thing I would like to point out is we have a program being supported by Malaria Consortium. We call it Seasonal Malaria Chemo Prophylaxis. They come up to, by June, we are going to have another round. So we've had 2 rounds in the FCT about 2 years ago last year, and this year's one is starting very soon. So this particular one is also targeting 3-month-old babies to less than 5 years of age. This is very, very important in prevention, because prevention is actually better than cure.
I think we should bring it Dr. Ntadom.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Dr. Ntadom, because everything we are reeling out from Professor Abubakar down here is about funding. And I wonder if you reach out, there is advocacy to well-meaning Nigerians, local organizations and companies who may have the resources to support beyond donor agencies as we know them.
Yes, I think last year, 2 years ago, 2022, the former head of state launched the End Malaria Council in Nigeria, and the theme, the goal of the End Malaria Council is to help the country to get enough resources through the private sector also included, and individuals. And we have some notable individuals who have also been in the effort to control malaria in the country. In the team, the chairman is Alhaji Aliko Dangote, and we have other members in the team. And the Honorable Minister, the coordinating minister, is also trying to inaugurate and ensure that you know, these people come on board to be part of it. But before I move, you know, we've said a lot within a short time. I must say that the ACT is the medicine that is recommended for the treatment of malaria in Nigeria and globally. And I must tell you that it is safe in pregnancy. Because if we say a woman has malaria and you are looking for obstetrics and gynecologists, I wonder how many are in Abuja. Doctor in the hospital can treat you. You don't need to go that far. If they are safe in pregnancy. And also the issue of vaccine. When we mention malaria vaccine, we look at it as a magic wand. When it comes, everything. One, the vaccine is targeting children below the age of 5 years. And because we are using vaccine is not 100%. It's an added armamentarium to the one existing. So it's just like the net does not protect 100%. The vaccine is not coming to clear the malaria. It's just to protect them to a point where they will not have the severe form of malaria. And it does not mean that you can't get malaria. We didn't get vaccine, but we are protected in a way because we have developed partial immunity over time. Because what is being introduced to your body is what will make your body to be able to fight back when you have the infection. That is exactly because at the age of 5 years, the children have not really been able to develop that protection. And that's why the vaccine is coming them to protect them to pass, because it's not only malaria that is a problem within the age of 5 years. There are so many other diseases. But if we remove malaria by giving them vaccine, they may be able to cope with the rest. So we shouldn't look at it as it's coming, malaria is gone. It's not like that.
Thank you. Thank you. I remember you also made this case the last time. It's been a while now, you know, But Dr. John, I'm again, speak to us about the different brands of medication that has been approved for treatment of malaria, because you hear so many things, you know, when you are with people, in the midst of people, and they tell you, oh, last week I had malaria, I just went to pick, you know, and it will surprise you that some people still go for chloroquine. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, we, like Dr. Ntadam said, we know the acceptable anti-malarials are the ACTs, and they come in different brands. You know, so people, even when, like you said, chloroquine had been banned, and some people still had chloroquine, especially in these patent medicine vendors with some pharmacies. They will tell you, oh, our parents used chloroquine and it worked for them. Some people believe that if it's not chloroquine, I can't take any other thing. And they still use chloroquine. Why was chloroquine taken out of the picture? Because of the abuse, it now became resistant. People who hitherto were responding to the chloroquine became resistant. You give chloroquine and as if you were giving water and stuff like that. So for the good of the people, it was felt that, okay, now let's remove chloroquine and bring something that will be more effective. It's just like what is happening with the antibiotics now. We're looking at the antimicrobial resistance. Because of the constant abuse, it's only in Nigeria that people would have maybe sore throat, they go and buy antibiotics over the counter. That's not supposed to be so. So these things, over time, the pathogens just get used to these things and they no longer become effective. So the accepted drug of treatment for malaria in Nigeria are the ACTs. So they come in different brand names, so we cannot begin to name brand names, but as long as they are ACTs, and not just because they are ACTs, if you just take one dose, you're good. No, you have to take it appropriately as prescribed and complete course of the treatment. If you're supposed to take it for 3 days, make sure you take it. With us, people are so, once you take the first dose and you feel good, you just dump the rest.
Why do they come in those horrible yellow, big colors? I mean,
well, I don't know why they were produced in those kind of colors.
They're the size of the efficacy. But I wanted to ask Dr. Egboja, something struck me when Dr. John was speaking a while ago. Are there conditions that make it so that there are particular individuals for who only particular brands will work for? Or is it just something in their minds? Because some will tell you, this brand doesn't work for me. It is this one that works for me. Is this supposed to be so?
I think if you know Nigeria very well, you will agree partially, because there are fake drugs everywhere. Yeah. If you take Coartem, for example, that is real, the real one, and you get treated and you recover from your malaria, and she goes and buys a fake one, she will say, Coartem doesn't work for me. But it is not because Coartem does not work. It is because maybe she bought the one that is fake. So I need to mention the fact that there are lots of fake drugs around, especially anti-malaria drugs. They fake what is moving, what can be sold very quickly. And anti-malarials are drugs that are moving in the pharmacies. There's no day that you go to any pharmacy and they will not sell at least 1 or 2 packets of anti-malaria. It doesn't happen. And so people fake them so that they can make money. Other than that, it's just a belief.
And that questions regulation. I hope we just have about enough time to get to Professor Abubakar and Kanu. Prof, thank you very much again for being there. Just as a way of concluding your thoughts, is there, because we are talking about efficacy, it's not just to have the medications out there, but the medications being able to do what they are supposed to do. Do we have a problem, in your opinion, with regulating these medications to be sure that what you have out there is what it's supposed to be out there?
Well, thank you very much. Just as Dr. Egboja mentioned, we are in Nigeria. We know that we are dealing with genuine drugs that are potent, but at the same time, the people of the underworld are involved in producing counterfeit drugs that are either underdosed or even changing some of the constituents so as to make a lot of profit. And as a result of that, you find out that there are so many drugs that people are purchasing and using, and they are not getting the results. And that is why it is very important for the regulatory bodies. I know NAFDAC is doing a lot of struggle to ensure that potent drugs are available in the country, but they are not the only body that should be involved in this fight. There is the need for greater legislation and ensuring the enforcement of such legislations, so that the law enforcement agencies need to come in. In this case, I want to give a lot of kudos to the government of Kano State, because it ensured that there is an available market for the sale of drugs, so that they will be controlling a lot of all these illicit activities that are taking place in the current market. That's the popular Abubakarimi market, where they sell drugs in unhygienic conditions, in so many conditions that should not be. And a lot of some of those drugs.
Sadiq Abubakar, I'm afraid we have to let you go at this point, because we're almost running. In fact, we have run out of time, and I want to appreciate your contributions. Thank you very much for the insights into our conversation. Professor Isa Sadiq Abubakar joined us from our Kano studio, and he's Director, Center for Infectious Diseases Research at Bayero University in Kano. Thank you, Prof. And back here in the studio, let me also quickly appreciate Dr. Godwin Ntadom, National Coordinator, National Malaria Elimination Program, Federal Ministry of Health. Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Isaac Kumaya Buja, Public Health Specialist and a friend of the House. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on this conversation. Dr. Aderonke Akonde, Acting Director, Disease Control FCT. It's a pleasure to have you on the program, madam. Thank you very much.